January 14, 1954. Marilyn Monroe raised her hand and slapped Joe DiMaggio across the face so hard that the sound echoed through their honeymoon suite at the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo. "You think I'm your property now that we're married?" she screamed. "You'll learn that Marilyn Monroe belongs to nobody." What happened next would shock Hollywood and reveal the real reason their marriage lasted only 9 months. This is the story of the wedding night slap that changed everything between America's most famous couple, and how Joe's response turned him from baseball legend to Hollywood's most hated man. January 14, 1954, 11:47 p.m. Joe DiMaggio was standing in his tuxedo, still wearing his wedding boutonniere, when Marilyn's hand connected with his cheek with explosive force. They had been married for exactly 6 hours. The ceremony at San Francisco City Hall had been perfect. 300 photographers had captured every moment. Marilyn had worn a simple brown suit that made her look elegant rather than sexy. Joe had smiled more than anyone had ever seen him smile. But now, in their honeymoon suite overlooking Tokyo Bay, the fairy tale was already ending. "What the hell was that for?" Joe asked, rubbing his face where a red handprint was already forming. "You know exactly what it's for." Marilyn shot back. "That photographer downstairs asked me to pose for one picture, just one picture, and you grabbed his camera and threw it against the wall." Joe's eyes flashed with anger. "That photographer was asking you to unbutton your shirt for a casual shot. On our wedding night. Did you think I was going to let that happen? It's my decision what pictures I take. It's my career. You don't get to control me just because we said some vows." The argument had started in the hotel lobby when a Japanese photographer had approached Marilyn for what seemed like an innocent photo. But Joe had heard him whisper instructions about how Marilyn should adjust her clothing and show more skin for American magazines. Joe had seen that look before. He'd spent 3 years watching men undress Marilyn with their eyes, watching photographers manipulate her into increasingly revealing poses, watching studio executives treat her like a commodity rather than a person. "Marilyn, you don't understand what these people want from you." "What I don't understand," Marilyn said, her voice rising to a dangerous level, "is how you think marriage gives you the right to make decisions for me." Joe had never seen Marilyn this angry. During their courtship, she had been grateful when he protected her from aggressive fans and intrusive photographers. She had told him that she felt safe with him, that he was the first man who wanted to take care of her rather than use her. But something had changed the moment they exchanged rings. "I'm not trying to control you," Joe said carefully. "I'm trying to protect you from people who see you as nothing but a body to exploit." "Protect me?" Marilyn's laugh was bitter. "Joe, I've been protecting myself since I was 16 years old. I don't need a husband to fight my battles. Maybe you don't need protection, but you deserve respect. And I'm not going to stand there while some stranger asks my wife to undress for his camera." "Your wife?" Marilyn's voice dropped to a whisper, but it was more threatening than any scream. "Is that what this is about? You think you own me now?" Joe realized he had said exactly the wrong thing. "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant. You think because you put a ring on my finger, you can control where I go, what I do, who I talk to, what pictures I take. You think Marilyn Monroe is now Mrs. Joe DiMaggio's property." The accusation hit Joe like a fastball to the chest because there was truth in it. He had married Marilyn partly because he loved her, but also because he wanted to rescue her from the Hollywood machine that was destroying her piece by piece. He had imagined their marriage as his chance to protect her from the studio executives who forced her into increasingly desperate publicity stunts, from the photographers who reduced her to sex appeal, from the gossip columnists who treated her personal life as public entertainment. But Joe was beginning to realize that Marilyn didn't want to be rescued. She wanted to be supported. "Marilyn, I love you. I married you because I want to build a life with you, but I won't apologize for defending you when people disrespect you." "Defending me? Or defending your reputation? Because maybe you're embarrassed to be married to the woman who posed nude for that calendar. Maybe you're ashamed that your wife is famous for her body instead of her baseball statistics." Joe felt like she had slapped him again. "How can you say that? Your career, your fame, none of that matters to me. I fell in love with Norma Jane, not Marilyn Monroe." "But you married Marilyn Monroe. You married the woman who makes movies, who takes photographs, who has contracts and obligations and a career that was built long before you came along." Joe sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly feeling exhausted. They had been traveling for 18 hours to get to Tokyo for their honeymoon. He had been looking forward to 2 weeks alone with his wife, away from the pressures of his career and hers. Instead, they were having the fight that would define their marriage. What do you want from me, Marilyn? Do you want me to stand there and smile while photographers ask you to pose like you're still single? Do you want me to pretend it doesn't bother me when men treat you like an object? I want you to trust me to handle my own career. I want you to support my decisions instead of overruling them. I want you to be my partner, not my manager. Joe looked at his wife, who was standing by the window with Tokyo's lights reflecting off her blonde hair. She was beautiful, but more than that, she was right. He had spent his entire baseball career being in control. He decided when to swing, when to steal a base, when to take risks. He controlled every aspect of his performance, because baseball was a game where individual excellence could determine the outcome. But marriage wasn't baseball. Marriage was a team sport, and Joe had been trying to play it like a solo performance. "You're right," Joe said quietly. "I'm sorry." Marilyn turned away from the window, surprised by his admission. "I'm sorry I embarrassed you in front of that photographer. I'm sorry I made decisions about your career without asking you. You're right that I don't have the right to control what you do just because we're married." Marilyn walked over and sat next to him on the bed. "Joe, I know you were trying to protect me, and I appreciate that you care enough to want to defend me, but I need you to understand that I've been fighting for myself my entire life. I don't need you to fight for me, I need you to fight with me." Joe took her hand. "What does that mean?" "It means when someone disrespects me, you let me handle it. But if I need backup, you're there. It means you support my career decisions even when they make you uncomfortable. It means you trust me to know the difference between a legitimate photographer and a creep trying to exploit me." Joe nodded, but he knew this conversation was bigger than just one incident with one photographer. "Marilyn, can I be honest about something? Please. I'm scared that your career is going to destroy you. I've watched you work 18-hour days, take pills to sleep, take more pills to wake up. I've seen you cry after reading gossip columns that tear apart your personal life. I married you because I love you, but also because I wanted to give you a reason to step away from all of that." Marilyn was quiet for a long moment. "Joe, my career isn't something that's happening to me. It's something I'm building. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's sometimes ugly, but it's mine. It's the first thing in my life that's ever really belonged to me. But what if we could build something together that was just ours? What if you didn't have to be Marilyn Monroe anymore? What if you could just be my wife? Because I like being Marilyn Monroe, I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I'm not looking for an escape from my career. I'm looking for someone who can love me and support my career at the same time." Joe realized that he and Marilyn had fundamentally different ideas about what their marriage would look like. Joe had imagined Marilyn stepping away from Hollywood, maybe making one movie a year while focusing on being a wife and eventual mother. He had envisioned quiet dinners at home, private vacations, a life where Marilyn Monroe, the public figure, gradually faded into Norma Jane, the private person. Marilyn had imagined Joe supporting her ambitions, attending movie premieres, being proud to be married to one of Hollywood's biggest stars. She had envisioned a partnership where her husband celebrated her success rather than seeing it as competition for her attention. "Joe, do you want me to quit acting?" Joe hesitated, and his hesitation gave Marilyn her answer. "You do. You want me to retire from movies so I can focus on being Mrs. DiMaggio. I want you to be happy. And I think you could be happier if you weren't constantly being judged and criticized and exploited by people who don't care about you as a person. But what if being an actress makes me happy? What if I'm not ready to give up the thing I've worked my entire life to achieve?" Joe didn't have an answer for that question. January 15th, 1954, 6:30 a.m. Joe and Marilyn woke up in separate beds after their first night as a married couple. They had talked until 3 a.m. without resolving anything. The conversation had revealed that they loved each other deeply but wanted incompatible things from their marriage. Joe wanted privacy, stability, and a wife who was available to focus on their relationship. Marilyn wanted partnership, support, and a husband who was excited about her professional success. Neither of them was wrong, but they might not be compatible. "Good morning," Marilyn said softly. "Good morning. How did you sleep?" "Terribly." "You?" "Same." They ordered room service and ate breakfast in awkward silence, both trying to figure out how to move forward. "Joe, I have something to tell you that might make this worse." Joe's stomach dropped. "What?" "Fox wants me to start a new movie next month. It's the lead role in a major production. It's the kind of part I've been fighting for my entire career." Joe felt like she had slapped him again. They had planned to spend the first few months of their marriage getting to know each other without the pressures of their careers. Joe had thought Marilyn understood that building a strong foundation for their relationship was more important than any movie role. You're going to take it. I haven't decided yet. But Joe, this is what I was talking about last night. I need you to be happy for opportunities like this, not resentful of them. Joe stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Tokyo Bay. Marilyn, I married you 6 hours ago. We haven't even finished our honeymoon and you're already planning to spend the next 3 months on a movie set working 16-hour days with another leading man, while I sit at home wondering when I'll see my wife again. Is that what you think being married to an actress means? I'm starting to think I don't know what being married to an actress means. And maybe you don't know what being married to someone who isn't in show business means. Marilyn joined him at the window. Maybe we should have had this conversation before we got married. Maybe we should have. They stood together looking out at the water, both realizing that their honeymoon was becoming a preview of the conflicts that would define their marriage. January 20th, 1954. Joe and Marilyn returned to Los Angeles after cutting their Tokyo honeymoon short by 4 days. The problems that had started with the wedding night slap had only gotten worse during their week in Japan. Every time Marilyn was recognized in public, Joe became tense and protective. Every time Joe tried to guide Marilyn away from photographers or fans, she became defensive and resentful. They were stuck in a cycle where Joe's protectiveness made Marilyn feel controlled, and Marilyn's independence made Joe feel shut out of her life. The press, of course, noticed the tension immediately. "Trouble in Paradise, DiMaggio and Monroe cut honeymoon short," read the headline in Variety. "Wedding night fight sends baseball hero and movie star home early," reported The Hollywood Reporter. Within 48 hours of their return, gossip columnists were speculating that America's most famous newlyweds were already headed for divorce. But the real shock came when Joe made a decision that surprised everyone, including Marilyn. January 25, 1954. Joe DiMaggio held a press conference at his restaurant in San Francisco and made an announcement that sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and the sports world. "I want to address the rumors about my marriage to Marilyn Monroe," Joe told the assembled reporters. "There have been stories suggesting that we're having problems because I'm trying to control her career. I want to make something very clear. Marilyn Monroe was a star before she met me, and she'll be a star long after people forget who Joe DiMaggio was. My job as her husband isn't to manage her career, it's to support her dreams." The reporters were stunned. They had expected Joe to either deny the marriage problems or blame them on the pressures of celebrity. Instead, he was taking full responsibility for the conflict. "I made a mistake on our wedding night when I interfered with a photographer who wanted to take pictures of my wife. Marilyn was right to be angry with me. She doesn't need me to protect her from her own career. She needs me to be proud of her success." Joe's public mea culpa was unprecedented for a man of his generation and status. In 1954, husbands were expected to be the head of the household. Wives were expected to prioritize their marriage over their careers. The idea of a famous man publicly apologizing to his wife for being too controlling was revolutionary. "So you're saying you support Marilyn's decision to continue making movies?" asked a reporter from the San Francisco Chronicle. "I'm saying I support Marilyn, period. If she wants to make movies, I'll be on set cheering her on. If she wants to retire tomorrow, I'll support that too. The point is, it's her choice." "What about reports that you want her to quit acting?" Joe paused, choosing his words carefully. "I want Marilyn to be happy. I've learned that what makes her happy might not be what I expected when we got married, but my job isn't to change her into the wife I imagined. My job is to love the woman I married." The press conference was front-page news across the country. Joe's willingness to admit his mistakes and publicly support his wife's independence made him a hero to women and a model for other husbands struggling with changing gender roles. But the real test would come when Marilyn decided whether to take the movie role that had caused their honeymoon fight. February 1st, 1954. Marilyn Monroe announced that she would star in The 7-Year Itch, the romantic comedy that would become one of her most famous films. Joe kept his promise. Instead of sulking or trying to discourage her, he showed up to the studio on her first day of filming with flowers and a note that read, "Break a leg, Mrs. DiMaggio. I'm proud to be married to a movie star." Marilyn cried when she read the note because it was exactly what she had hoped to hear on their wedding night. For the next several months, Joe made good on his commitment to support Marilyn's career. He attended script readings, visited her on set, and even charmed the notoriously difficult director Billy Wilder. But the real test came in September 1954. When The 7-Year Itch filmed its most famous scene, Marilyn standing over a subway grate while her white dress was blown up by air from below. Joe stood in the crowd of spectators watching his wife perform the scene that would become one of the most iconic moments in movie history. As Marilyn's dress billowed up and the crowd of men cheered and whistled, Joe felt every instinct telling him to stop the filming, to cover his wife, to protect her from the leering eyes of strangers. But he remembered their wedding night fight. He remembered his promise to support her choices. He remembered that Marilyn needed a partner, not a protector. So Joe DiMaggio stood there and watched his wife create movie magic, even though it was killing him inside. When the scene was finished, Marilyn ran over to Joe, excited and proud of her performance. "How did I look?" she asked breathlessly. "Like a movie star," Joe replied, and he meant it. But that night, in their hotel room, Joe finally broke down. "I can't do it, Marilyn. I thought I could, but I can't." "Can't do what?" "I can't watch other men look at you the way they looked at you today. I can't pretend it doesn't bother me when you do scenes like that. I know it's your job, I know it's what you love, but it's destroying me." Marilyn sat next to him and took his hand. "Joe, are you asking me to choose between my career and my marriage?" "I don't know. Maybe. I know that makes me a terrible husband, but I'm being honest about what I can handle." Marilyn was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was sad but understanding. "Joe, I love you. You're the best man I've ever known, but I can't be the wife you need me to be, and you can't be the husband I need you to be. That doesn't make either of us bad people. It just makes us wrong for each other." October 27, 1954. Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe announced their separation after 9 months of marriage. The statement they released was unusual for its honesty and mutual respect. "We have discovered that we want different things from marriage. Joe needs a wife who can focus primarily on their relationship. Marilyn needs a husband who can embrace her career without reservation. We love each other deeply, but love isn't always enough to bridge fundamental incompatibilities. We will always be grateful for the time we shared and the lessons we learned from each other." The divorce was finalized in November 1954, but Joe and Marilyn remained close friends for the rest of her life. Joe later said that the wedding night slap was the best thing that ever happened to him because it forced him to confront his own expectations and limitations as a husband. "Marilyn taught me that you can't love someone by trying to change them," Joe told reporters years later. "You have to love them for who they are, not who you wish they could be." Marilyn said that Joe taught her to demand better from the men in her life. "Joe showed me what it looks like when a man truly respects a woman's independence," she said in a 1956 interview. "Even though our marriage didn't work, he set a standard that every relationship after him had to meet." The wedding night slap that shocked Hollywood became a turning point for both Joe and Marilyn. For Joe, it was the beginning of a journey toward understanding that real love means supporting someone's dreams even when they're different from your own. For Marilyn, it was confirmation that she deserved a partner who celebrated her ambition rather than seeing it as a threat to their relationship. Their marriage lasted only 9 months, but the respect they showed each other during their divorce set a new standard for how couples could separate with dignity and mutual appreciation. January 14, 1954, Marilyn Monroe slapped Joe DiMaggio on their wedding night and told him she belonged to nobody. Joe's response, publicly supporting her career despite his personal discomfort, transformed him from a controlling husband into a feminist ally decades ahead of his time. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is admit that you're not the right person to love them the way they deserve to be loved. If this story of love, growth, and difficult choices moved you, subscribe for more untold stories of how famous couples navigated the changing expectations of marriage and career in the 1950s. Like this video if you believe Joe DiMaggio's public apology was revolutionary for its time. And comment below, do you think love is enough to overcome fundamental incompatibilities, or was Joe and Marilyn's divorce the right choice? Next week we're revealing another story of how a celebrity couple shocked the world by choosing honesty over image management. Remember, sometimes the most romantic gesture isn't fighting for a relationship, but knowing when to let someone go so they can find the love they truly need.